We know it's not real.
All right.
Not being about it.
That's
Right, that's
is
for
it.
sure, right.
You
In
wanna
the
be in the
middle.
center?
Okay.
Have bookends.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable back here. Oh, you're all sweaty and.
Yeah, would you like another feel?
Stand up.
Okay, we're talking to members of Rawlins Cross. Why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us what you play?
Dave Panting, I play the mandolin and the guitar in the band.
Pamela Payton, and I play drums and boron.
Ian McKinnon, and I play all the wind instruments.
Which
include the Highland bagpipe and the trumpet and harmonica and tin whistle.
Give us a description of the band.
A description of the
Yeah.
band. The music that we play, it's a combination of music taken from, well, the Atlantic provinces, Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, really mostly. I write original songs. My brother Jeff writes songs in a rock vein, but we use the traditional music in that. We also write tunes in the traditional style, and we play some of the traditional music from the area. So that's basically what we're doing.
How did you learn the traditional things? Are these things from your family, things from records, school music?
We're all different. In my case, I came into it late. It wouldn't be a family thing with me, although my folks encouraged me to be interested in all kinds of music and keep an open mind. But I wasn't raised in the tradition. I started playing in bands in high school, that sort of thing, and got into the traditional music in my late teens and learned how to play the mandolin. And it, I don't know, just I really caught on to it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What is the music scene in Newfoundland like? Is it sort of, do people do mainly rock and roll now? Is it?
There's a variety. Country and western is very big. Country and western with an accordion is what they call the Newfie kind of sound, which you're going to, which you hear a lot of up there, and that's quite popular. The traditional music, like Irish music and so on, is making a big resurgence. There are a lot of festivals in the summer around smaller places. There's a lot now. There's so many now. They're starting to conflict with each other. There's a lot of that every year, and that's really come up over the last 15 years or so. As well, there's a lot of younger bands, especially in the St. John's area, playing new rock music. There's a lot of original writing. There was a big, I don't know what you would call it, sort of resurgence of guys about 18 or 19, or 3 or 4 years ago. All these young fellas, I don't know where they came from, but it was like a new we'd been sort of going along in a slump for a few years, and all of a sudden all these guys came out of the woodwork and started playing, all these young guys in high school and so on. It was like, we used to say it was a real kick in the arse for the rest of us, really. But it really rejuvenated the scene in St. John's. It was like, boy, who are these guys? And it was, come on, let's get cracking. They're beating the daylights out of us. It was great.
Why do you think the traditional music resurged?
Well, it's hard to say. I think Irish music has been very popular in Newfoundland as long as I can remember. I really couldn't say exactly why. Partly because of some of the playing of the bands like Figgy Duff and so on. We went around and pushed it and got it on the go. But I don't know, it seemed like people were ready for it. They were kind of, they needed something, and it seemed like they realized, hey, we can do this really well.
You were formerly in Figgy Duff.
Yeah, I played with them for quite a while.
Of course, Figgy Duff plays tunes and songs from the repertoire of a lot of the traditional musicians of Newfoundland, such as Emile Benoit, Rufus Ginchard, who's here, and some of the singers also.
Yes, yeah, we did a lot of traveling. We met a lot of those people, played with them, very much like in Ian's case in the Cape Breton scene. He's met a lot of people, and we learned a lot of music from those people, and vice versa.
I like the electricity being added to it. Adds another dimension.
Yes, well, like I say, I started actually. That's how I started. I started in high school. Garage bands. That's basically where I started playing music. I learned how to play the guitar, and I started playing in rock and roll bands in high school with friends. So when the traditional thing came along, got into it. To me, it's kind of a natural merger. Although I find over the last few years I'm getting better at getting the two things together in a more seamless way, which is what I've been trying to do for a long time. But to me, they do the same thing to me. They're both the same. They're exciting and they've got the drive. A reel and a rock and roll tune, I'll enjoy them equally. Kind of thing.
Dave, you say that the music is not a family thing, but it seems odd that you say that, since of the two absent members of the band that were not here with us at the moment, one is your brother Jeff.
Right. Okay. What I mean is that just from my parents and so on.
Yeah,
That's what
I
meant
know.
To say. Yeah.
But
right. No, actually.
Where does he fit into this?
Oh well.
Did he have an influence on you? He's older, isn't he?
No, I'm the older.
Oh, you're the older.
But myself and
Your
him.
boyish charm.
Thank you very much. I think that's a compliment. Are you married? But no, we grew up together learning how to play. He got into playing keyboards, and we never did get a chance to play together much professionally. It's only again the last few years that we were able to work together very much. I have a younger brother, Sean, who's 19 and who's got a band of his own, and who is a yeah. I don't know where that all came from. It was like one generation.
Well, he plays the concertina.
My brother, Jeff is.
No. I mean Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff plays the accordion.
Concertina and the keyboard.
It's not actually a concertina. It's a little button accordion.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah. But and my brothers, there's 3 of us now that play out of 5 children. So it's like it just came out of nowhere. But I guess it didn't really. I think we were encouraged though. My mother loves music very much. My father was always. They didn't discourage us from playing, even though they knew that they might rather have us have jobs and so on. But they put up with it and helped us out,
How did the bodhrán and the pipes come into it?
Would you like us to speak now,
Yeah.
Mr. Panting? This is
Nearly asleep
Mr.
there.
Dave Panting profile here. I was about to suggest Pam and I go up and get a drink or something.
Oh, I knew you'd never
Go
let
get
that
a beer.
go for long, buddy.
No, as far as the pipes.
Contrary to what normally happens.
Okay, do you want to answer first about the? Oh, one of the other members of the band has just arrived. I don't know if you can swing in here somewhere. Just asking about the.
Between Dave and Marsh. There's a chair there.
Just asking about the pipes. Well, Dave and Jeff and I come from Nova Scotia, and I went to study in St. John's at Memorial University about 4.5 years ago. And when I arrived in St. John's, I was there about 3 days, I think, and I met up with Dave and Jeff at a party. And we started playing music together just at that point, and we played off and on, mainly folk music, not the rock and roll that we do now. Played off and on for about 4 years, and then Pamela over time joined us, and then we had Lauren Taylor, our bass player, join the band as well. And from that point on, the music took a very different direction. Started playing a lot more of Dave's music and Jeff's music, original songs, but we maintain the traditional flavor of the music. Mm-hmm. We still feature the bagpipes in tune selections, and lately we have been getting back to a lot more acoustic material. And especially in a venue like this, where on the ship here, it fits very well because we can move very comfortably from acoustic folk music using the bodhrán and tin whistle, mandolin, accordion, acoustic guitar over to the electric, and it adds a very nice dynamic. And but you asked about the bodhrán, maybe Pam would like to talk about that.
Well, there's not a lot to say about it. I just started playing the bodhrán about 3 or 4 months ago, and I quite enjoy it. I studied percussion at university and played drums since I was a wee little kid. So it's a natural place for me to be.
So you'd heard like other groups playing?
Well, actually, no. I've just moved to Newfoundland. Just started to get into the bodhrán very recently. Mostly because of the acoustic thing that the band was getting into, and it wasn't the drum set wasn't actually fitting, and I didn't want to sit there. I played a Renaissance drum for for a summer.
Oh, one of the.
It's actually it's a large table. It was kind of boomy for this venue and this kind of music. So I decided to get a boron on the go and start to play it, and I really enjoy it.
So it's just kind of evolving as you go.
Yeah.
Where do you hail from?
I'm a Nova Scotian. I'm from Halifax.
So where when you're getting music, like when you're not writing it, where are you likely to get it from? Other musicians or?
Yes, these days it's the tune. I'm fairly choosy about tunes. I'm not the kind of when it comes to traditional music, I know a fair amount of tunes, but I'm not one of these people that collects 1,000 tunes for the sake of having them. I like to have 100 good ones rather than 10,000 finger exercises. So I'm that kind of musician. Sometimes I'll have to sit out long fiddle sessions because I just don't know the tunes, and a lot of them don't appeal to me. But I try to get real. I look at tunes as well in terms of accompaniment a lot. I say, well, that would sound good with accompaniment, and I usually try to pick the ones that will fit into that format.
Where's the button accordion? Is that sort of the Newfoundland tradition? I mean, as opposed to like keyboard accordion or
very much so. The button accordion would be.
This is younger brother Jeff.
This is me, yeah.
Baby brother Jeff.
No, we got a baby brother. Actually, I'm safe on that score.
Two baby brothers.
Yeah, 2 baby brothers actually. Two guys younger than me. But it's very much a part of the Newfoundland tradition. It would have been one of the few instruments that people would have brought over when they moved their fiddles too. I think it was sort of anything light and portable. I guess was kind of the rule of the day. It would have been like that.
Not too many grand pianos.
Not too many grand pianos coming around. Harps and stuff like that, But it's very, very much so in Newfoundland. There's a very sort of distinctive button accordion style as well that you get in Newfoundland.
What would you?
Nippy, I think is the word. Very fast, very straight ahead kind of tunes, which are Rufus Skinchard actually, who's on the boat here, plays very much in that style. He's a fiddle player, but that's the real Newfoundland stuff.
Portability of instruments is another reason why I like the boron, because I can go up and sit in.
Really?
It was we had a jam session last night where we all got up and played, and it was great. Playing blues and old Dixieland stuff. Normally I would just sort of sit there and make my legs sore. Now with the boron I can sit in as well.
You don't fill a whole taxi the way you do with the drum set.
It's nice.
Talk about you're talking about the Newfie music, the country with the accordion. I don't know anything about that. Is that?
Well, a lot of it consists of locally written songs about. There's more recent. I guess you could say it's a more recent genre. Country and Western music really took hold in Newfoundland. I would say it's probably had a lot to do with the American bases during the war. That people in Newfoundland heard that music, and it really caught on. It seems to be. It's very closely related to folk music, and they use it that way. They'll write. Sometimes you get 6 songs on the radio with the same tune, but they've all got different words, by 6 different bands. They do that. Mostly real straightforward stuff, 2 or 3 chords, and accordion plays the melody. Although there's one couple of gentlemen in the Buren area, Sim and I, is the name of the group, and they've established a recording studio down there. And I really admire what they've done because they've got a lot of local acts, and they're able to make good quality recordings. There's a lot of product out now compared to what there was a few years ago. There's just a lot of people making.
And that follows the demand actually for the product. This group that Dave is talking about, Sim and I, have actually gone platinum in Canada, which means sales of 100,000 units on their Saltwater Cowboy album. Out of their basement in Bellorum, Bud Davidge's basement. And so there's a great demand for that, not only in Newfoundland, but the expatriate Newfoundland communities here in the Boston area, throughout the northeastern states, and also around Toronto and Detroit. So it's very, very popular, very interesting stuff. Sim and I and these groups.
That's interesting. The cowboy that you were talking about. I heard this song from some guy from Scotland who has a northern cowboy. It's like the Scottish truck driver. coming in,
Well,
and
if you go
the
to
saltwater cowboy.
You go to England, you can walk into a bar and some guy will be coming with slick back hair, cowboy boots on, driving, a rig.
I think
English
in,
lorry
New-
driver,
in Newfoundland
just
it was
catches
the
up.
Alberta connection as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
people, when the big oil boom hit in Alberta,
Uh-huh.
like an awful lot of
Uh-huh.
people left Newfoundland and,
Yeah.
and went to Alberta.
Uh-huh.
And sort of then
Well, what's
a
the
good
big
bunch
line
of
in
them
the
came
song?
back.
You're just a Newfoundlander to Calgary.
Yeah,
Still
just-
just a
yeah.
Newfie in your Calgary.
You
Right,
can't
right.
fool your old man by dressing like that. You're still
Right.
just a newfie in a Calgary.
Right.
Yeah.
That song is a classic.
Well, this guy Bud Davidge is, he's a really incredible songwriter. He's just gets just straight to the folk tradition. There was another thing a couple of summers ago. There was Newfoundland, the government of Newfoundland decided to institute something called double daylight savings time, which meant that while it was say 1 o'clock in Nova Scotia Atlantic
At 12
Standard
o'clock
Time,
here.
12 o'clock here. It's usually a half an hour later in Newfoundland, but they decided to make it an hour and a half later. So it was very strange. I mean, parents were trying. Well, Pamela can relate to this because she has
My
young
kids
children.
were out at 1 o'clock in the night, in the
Yeah.
morning,
It was still-
playing, and I was, come on, you gotta come in, and we were
It was
painting our
getting
house and
getting
stuff.
dark at 11, 12
Getting dark,
o'clock.
land of the
Very
midnight
strange.
sun.
The midnight sun.
Yeah, but Bud Davidge and Sim Savory wrote a song called Double Daylight Savings Time. Double your pleasure, double your fun. It was just a great, just a great parody in this whole situation. And so that they've had this ability to do that, to just sort of sense popular issues or feelings of the people and write that in their songs, and they've been very, very popular.
Oh, can you give some more examples of like what?
Well, of their own songs. What else? Oh, there's one, probably the biggest hit that they've had so far is called the Mummers Song. And in Newfoundland, there's a mummering tradition. It's where, especially around the Christmas period, where people dress up, disguises, and visit houses around Newfoundland or in their communities. There are sexual role reversals, so men would often go dressed as women and women dressed as men. And so this is the song. Bud Davidge wrote this song called the Mummers Song, and again, very, very popular, just about recounting this whole tradition, and something that the Newfoundlanders could relate to, and it's very seasonal. Still at Christmas time, you turn on the radio, and that's every third song you'll hear the Mummers Song.
Yeah, the real sense you get from them is their music is very much of and for the common people.
The mummer
Local
tradition
band.
still exists in the outports in Newfoundland.
To some
Very-
extent.
So like St. George slaying the dragon, or is it?
Yeah,
these
that's
guys,
one,
I mean,
that's,
you guys
that's
went
one
through
version of the mummers idea. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done some over the years. We've had opportunity to do a lot of those plays at Christmas time. Jeff has done a lot of it. The theater group, Figgy Duff, we mounted a play about 6 years running. We mounted a large Christmas show, which we used to incorporate a mummers play into. Now, you have your basic play, which you can switch around, invent your own characters. It's something like St. George having a fight. You have a stick man who will come out and do a sort of announcing. You have this thing called a hobby horse. This is in the English. It's, I think, basically a British thing. The hobby horse is the guy, lots of variations, of course, but underneath a blanket with the head of a horse made out of wood with a knocker, and it could go around destroying the place. And, some people used to put nails in. It could get quite wild. Depending,
Very political too. At one time, of course, this would have been it was a political thing. Like this is the time you could dress up and make your political statement without having repercussions. And apparently, like it used to get, like in certain places, like it did get fairly heavy with.
In fact, at one point in St. John's in the early decades of this century, there was in fact a murder that took place in St. John's. It was under the guise of a mummers play. There were visitors that came because I mean, these sorts of times, it's sort of these sorts of plays are act as sort of a safety valve. It is said on communities. It enables them, the mask is on, so they're able to do things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do. So a lot of people would go into their bosses' houses and occasionally it would get wild. You know, things would be broken or smashed. Or, but
Somewhat
on one
like a
occasion
Mardi
there was a
Gras.
murder.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah,
same idea.
it's
Yeah,
yeah.
same
It's,
idea.
so there was a murder that took place in St. John's after that point. I understand that the mummer was outlawed for a period of time.
We got it. Another group, of course, were called the Mummers Troupe originally. That was a theater group. They didn't only do that, but they did a version of the play. We would loosely base it around. You have the stick man comes in and do it. The horse just goes around creating general havoc, keeps interrupting the play, has to be hauled back and so on. Sit down, horse, you know. Then you have in comes I, probably St. Patrick. And then, of course, St. George come in. They have a sword fight. Somebody gets killed. They call for a doctor. A doctor comes in and goes through this whole foolish rigmarole of, you know, I don't know, an enema or pumping the guy up, sticking something, you know, in his mouth, pumping him up, or, you know, you have all this.
So eventually
kind of
he's cured, and
eventually he's cured.
There's also that whole tradition of, you know, life coming from death and the resurrection,
Yeah.
which is also, of course, it's also the same thing with the sun.
The seasonal
It's,
thing,
you know,
yeah.
you're celebrating the start of the return of the sun and that whole, like, so it's a very pagan
Yeah.
thing, you know, and
Very.
the tradition goes back a long ways.
It's
But
great
we,
fun
you
to
know,
do. Boy.
basically, yeah, if somebody gets killed, and then you need the doctor who finds the cure. We did some work with those things where you actually, a guy I used to work with, Frank Berry, wrote an original version of the Mummers play, where the fisherman basically is three Newfoundland politicians fighting over the fisherman, and that they kill the fisherman.
They pull him apart until he's dead, and then they have the doctor.
Right. So the doctor has to come in and bring him back. Gives him
Did
enough money to bring him back to
personify
life.
the politicians? Were they like?
Yeah, they were. No,
Chronically
there was Joey
Uh-huh.
Smallwood and Brian Peckford and.
There was the merchant, of course, you know.
Yeah,
there's
and the merchant. Yeah.
In comes I, the merchant, as big as a barrel, you know.
Yeah. That's great, yeah, but the politicians end up fighting. Or actually, it's the merchant and Joey Smallwood and King Peck of Wilford and stuff. It was funny.
You guys did a version, I remember, where you had, well, it was a play within a play, too. So the guy dies in the play, and then he died, you know, in the house, that kind of.
Yeah, well, it was a theatre collective, and it was like the Mummers play. But the guy who's playing the fisherman in the Mummers play actually dies. He has a heart attack while they're having the play, right?
That's the father of the family, and
then the whole thing turns into a funeral. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's interesting.
We all have to cross our legs, Dave with a cross.
It was me just feeling natural here.
I hope you're editing
On the beat.
In the same key,
It's pretty good though. We haven't got the same colours on again. That's good.
Yeah.
It's always embarrassing. Everybody turns up in the same shirt on.
At the same time.
First time I was in Canada, they used to have, in Nova Scotia, they had all these books of Newfie jokes. It was sort of like,
Newfoundlanders, right?
yeah,
I mean,
because
Nobody
Newfoundland, really?
else would bother, I don't think. You know.
It's really.
They're telling them, and the Newfoundlanders are selling them.
It's one of the things that I noticed in coming to St. John's, coming on 5 years ago, was that there was a real tendency for Newfoundlanders to make fun of themselves. You know, for example, you'll go into shops, and it's you always hear the term Newfie. Newfie is sort of the goofy, stupid caricature of the Newfoundlander. And for example, you'll get a cup, you know, and what's in a souvenir shop, the Newfie cup, and the handle's on the inside of the cup.
But if a
These sorts of
Newfoundlander,
things.
it's fine for a Newfoundlander to call themselves Newfies, but if an outsider calls them a Newf, it's like, whoa. Don't do
For
that.
some people,
Yeah.
depends.
Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know if you guys.
The island of Newfoundland is called Newfie. In
Yeah.
some songs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, sure. You know, I wonder if that's, again, I don't know if that might, maybe you guys can enlighten me on this. I think that might, I always thought it might be an American word like Okie or Arkie that they used to use for people from Oklahoma.
Or
So
Arkansas.
I thought that
like-
perhaps the American servicemen put that's where that term might have come from in the 40s.
Might have. I don't
Might
know.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Newfie, because it
Yeah.
seems like the, you know,
Something we do.
seems like an American, seems like an American thing.
Well, he wasn't actually going to say
Well,
that.
if we
but
did,
yeah.
we're sorry.
But it's interesting what it has become when
Yeah.
you hear like
Yeah, I
that
mean, it's-
Newfie. It's
yeah,
usually
It'd be
in terms
fun.
of
It's
very
fun. It has
kind
a
of a-
demeaning. It has a demeaning
does have a-
connotation.
yeah.
That's- I don't like it for that
And
reason.
in fact, there's this ritual. It's become very popular in Newfoundland called the screech-in, which is something that is, I mean, they think of it as, a lot of people think of it as a tradition. In fact, it only goes back about 15 years.
1903.
Yeah, less than that. 10 or
75,
15 years.
or something like that.
15 years, I guess. But what it involves is a person, a Newfoundlander, getting dressed up in oilskins, and it's a initiation ritual for visitors to Newfoundland, where the visitors have to drink a bit of screech, which is a powerful rum, and they have to kiss a codfish, and they have to say, after being asked, "Is ye a screecher?" you have to say, "Deed I is me old cock and long mare big jib draw." All this sort of stuff.
Or
and it's
stuff to that effect.
or along that line,
Like in the Yukon, they have one like that involves drinking a glass of something what's supposed to be somebody's frostbitten toe in the bottom of the glass. very very much along the same kind. Actually, it's a little more imaginative than the codfish bit, but yeah, that's the same idea.
It's become a really interesting ritual. It's very fun, but there's an interest within the tourism industry in Newfoundland. There's a very strong faction now that are pushing to have that whole, kind of slightly demeaning ritual done away with. And there's a contest going on now to try to come up with something else.
By the provincial government, basically.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's a tourism thing.
But they're coming up with, there's the CBC radio in St. John's has this contest on the go now. You can win a CD player, portable CD player, if you come up with a new idea to replace the screech-in. But I don't think it's like the screech-in, although it's kind of stupid in many ways. It's really caught on and has become a bit of a tradition.
I mean, sometimes I find it pretty harmless, really, in a way, but it's still.
It is, yeah.
And some guys are quite good at it, actually. If you get a guy who's a host and he's good, he can be, people can have fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing. Really. Can't get that worked up. It's pretty strange. Whoever thought it up.
Did you ever get screeched in?
Yes, I was screeched in. I kissed the
The truth comes out.
Well, it sounds pretty good. I mean, people that try to replace things like that usually come up with something so incredibly bland,
Yeah.
that it's real boring. I mean,
I just heard one of the suggestions for replacement, and it was basically to replace the oilskin Newfoundlander with a Viking, and to call it a Vike Inn instead of a screech in.
I mean,
and to give them, instead of rum, give them purity syrup and say something else, is he a Viking? And, I don't know what the thing was, but it was pretty stupid.
Calling a cod or a salmon is little fish.
Yeah, jeez.
So now that the band has a fine new album, what are your plans for Rawlins Cross?
Fame and fortune.
Fishing for a record contract, I think, is next on the agenda, basically. Record companies being probably the only people who have enough money to allow you to do projects like that on a regular basis, without having to call in every favor that anybody ever owed you for the last 20 years, and owing a few people a few more. I guess like something like a video would be, we had to rely on a lot of friends to help us out and stuff, which is not something that you could do on a continuous basis.
You have your video.
So at a certain point you need
album,
some kind of funding, but again, that's not enough now. Like you have the one video now, of course you have to be able to make another one and stuff. So it's kind of hard to keep the ball rolling without some
We've
sort
been
of
up
system.
to one of the things for us is to get out of Newfoundland and do some traveling on the mainland in Canada, and this trip here to the States is great because it's exposure is very important in music, and having people and important people in the music industry hear you live. And to that end, we were in Toronto a couple of weeks ago playing a showcase gig. Showcase is a euphemism for playing for nothing. And for exposure's sake. And so that went very well. There were some people that came down and heard us, and in fact we got another invitation to Toronto out of that, so we'll be going back at the end of April and playing another showcase gig. But it's coming along. It's a matter of getting exposure and a lot of media support, and having people across Canada to start with become aware of our music and what we are, and that we have something different to offer, and so that's very much part of what we're doing now.
I think the point is also that we're going to go on making the music anyway, really. I have no intention of stopping whether whether record people pick it up or not. So I mean, there's a depth of music, and there's a lot to be done. We've got a lot of road in front of us. So.
Well, great. Best of luck. I hope that you do break out and you break in here.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to come back. I think that's another thing. I mean, we'd like to have a steady circuit that we could come down and play. I'd love to come down.
Yeah. I think that's the way.
I haven't played enough in the States. I've always wanted to. Playing for 15 years, I've never been in Boston before.
Yeah, this is like really a heavy duty area for music like you guys do.
Sure.
Can you get us a gig?
I can probably think of some suggestions, places you might.
Actually, I first started playing in Toronto, but I lived in Cleveland, Ohio for 4 years. I played in the school band there. It was kind of exciting. That was way back.
Like high school band or?
Well, it was junior high, and I played timpani. It was a bit of a struggle. They wouldn't let me play in the percussion section because it was unheard of. So they put me in
For a
tips,
woman?
and it
To have a woman
took
in
me about, I don't know, quite a while to get them convinced that I could handle the timp parts.
Think. You should play in a Cajun band.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, didn't they used to? No, it's Triangle.
Oh yeah,
Triangle.
Yeah.
And boy, yeah, washboard and triangle and stuff.
Anything. Make music with anything.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Make sure that if you haven't already done so,